Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Aap sabko khush aamdeed. We welcome you to the Black Hole. And this is the book launch, the book launch for the first ever rock climbing guidebook. And please join us in extending a very warm welcome to Kai Maluck, the celebrated alpinist from Germany. Kai will call you on stage, and in the meanwhile, let me introduce him. Kai is a geographer and mountaineer, and he has extensively documented his Himalayan expeditions in this book. And this book seamlessly blends thrilling adventure with the art of photography, resulting in the creation of the first ever rock climbing guidebook dedicated to the Himalayas. And I must add that this is Kai's fifth book on mountaineering, which is a testament to his passion for high altitude exploration and adventure. So we welcome you, Kai, to the Black Hole. We also have with us Wajahat Malik, who is a documentary filmmaker, producer, and a TV presenter of travel films. And he's also an avid mountain climber, paragliding pilot, and a writer based in Islamabad. And of course, thank you to the wonderful audience. And please, Wajahat, join us for the discussion. So I request you all to please switch off your mobile phone or put it in the silent mode. And also, after a short discussion, we'll have a screening, a photo show. And along with that, we'll open up for the question-answer session. And for that, you'd be requested to raise your hands so that we can hand you over the mic. So over to you, Wajahat and Kai. Thank you.
Bahut shukriya, Aisha. Thank you very much. Before we begin, I would like to express my solidarity with the people of Palestine, Gaza, West Bank, and I strongly condemn the terrorist state of Israel for committing crimes against humanity and the countries that are part and parcel of that whole genocide. And now we can begin. We have with us Kai Maluck. My first question is, my name is Malik, last name, your name is Malik. What's up with that? Yeah. Just please go up.
Okay. Yeah, actually, my name is from Europe. It's far away, but I'm already aware that in Pakistan there are quite a number of Maliks and Maluks and so on. So it's just a little bit at the end of the word which distinguishes us. But as I've already heard, we both love the mountains. We love filmmaking, which I do a little bit as well. So I think we've got a lot in common, yeah?
Yes, like in Pakistan, my Malik sometimes in the villages can be pronounced as Malak or Malak Saab. You know, that's also interesting. But anyway, so my first question is, when I looked at the book today, you know, when I physically looked at it and I was leafing through it while we were sitting upstairs, my first impression was amazing. I mean, it's just amazing that you actually went and documented and charted all those rock climbing routes, not only in Pakistan, but also in India and Nepal, and I think Tibet as well. So what was the motivation behind, I mean, this is a very cumbersome, tedious work that you did. And I'm sure you're a rock climber, and I can understand, but why the route chalking?
Yeah, actually, you know, I've done a few books, and about 3.5 years ago, I moved to Delhi. Sorry for that, but it was Delhi for work at the German Embassy School in Delhi. And when I moved there, I was very much determined not to write a guidebook. Definitely not, because I had written a few already beforehand, and I didn't want to do it. But then when I was there and I went to the Himalayas for the weekends, I noticed there was very little climbing actually in that area developed. And then people had heard rumors of where one could climb, but nobody really knew where to go. So So what is not known of cannot be used. I traveled to Kathmandu, and even the best climbers of Kathmandu had heard rumors of distant places in Nepal where you can do rock climbing. But as long as you don't know it, you can't really do it. The tourists were coming in, and they said, if I had known there was rock climbing, I would have stayed an additional week in a Himalayan country, spending money in tourism industry and so on. And for the mountaineering guides training, I knew it would be very useful if there was a knowledge of where to climb. So in the end, I thought the value of such a book would be so high. And who can do it? You must have sufficient English language knowledge, book writing experience, alpinist background, and so on. So I understood, actually, if I don't do it, nobody will ever do it. It will never get into existence, but it's such an important tool for making our world a tiny little bit piece better. And so I said, if I don't do it, nobody will do it. Let's do it. And so I went into hell, because I finished this book within 2.5 years, and was so much writing, so much field work to meet people, which was lovely, but a lot of work, actually. And I'm very relieved that now it's done already.
No, I think that's wonderful, because it is a problem, because when you go to a country, you don't know where the routes are and where to rock climb if you have a passion for that sport. My second question is, now that people have this handbook and they can actually leaf through it, and if they want to go and climb, what, I don't know about India and Nepal, don't really care much, but what difficulties did you face in Pakistan while charting these routes? I mean, I'm sure you met up with different rock climbers. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, maybe let's say it's my, I think, 6th or 7th visit which I'm having here at the moment in Pakistan, because I've been here very often. First time in 2011 it was. That was lovely. We went to Gilgit-Baltistan, to the Karakoram Mountains in those days. So I would just say I never had any problems here. I always met lovely people, and I still do. And whenever I went to the mountains, I wanted to chart the routes. There were no obstacles. There was lots of support, actually, but no problems. Of course, there's the problem when you want to chart what has been done beforehand, to get into contact with those who know. So like with Sajid Aslam, for example, I spent about 3 weeks or something, I'm not really sure, a lot of time just around last New Year's Eve. It was a very happy time we spent together. And he's the I don't know about others, but one great expert of the Margalla Hills, to my knowledge. And getting into contact with you, that was a little work at first. But apart from that, whenever I meet Pakistanis, they're friendly people, so there were no problems. Sorry, the answer is no.
That's good, but I'm talking most about the authorities. You know, when I said India, Nepal, because over there are no issues. People go ahead. There's rock climbing, there's mountain climbing. People can go into the mountains. Here in our country, you know, there are issues, because at times when you go into the mountains and the authorities are always looking, you know, around, they think that you are here for some other kind of activities. Mm-hmm. I was talking from that point of view, the authorities, because I know in Nepal and India, you know, I've actually been to India. I've been to Himachal Pradesh for a flying festival, yeah. And when I was traveling in Himachal Pradesh, I realized that things were easier over there in terms of adventure. And we didn't face the issues I see the foreigners face in Pakistan, because, you know, there are NOCs and there are all these, restrictions on foreigners. So that's why I was a bit, interested in knowing that if you had any problems by the authorities. People are always beautiful.
I have to contradict. Pakistan is fantastic. I have to contradict. So, yeah, actually, I mean, of course, if you wanted to get super close to the line of control, I am absolutely sure I would get great problems, but I don't. So when I came for the first time in 2011, my friends and my attitude was we wanted to go on an expedition in those days and somewhere to the super high mountains. So it was India, Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan. These were the candidates, kind of. And we decided for Pakistan because the bureaucratic problems were the lowest. And that was the main reason why we said, let's choose Pakistan, because in those days I didn't know much about all these countries. And so actually, I never had any problems with authorities. Sorry for that.
That's good. Good to know. I'm glad this is the first time somebody's saying that, because anyway, let's move on. What is the rock climbing scene in Pakistan? Where do you think where does it stand? I mean, in terms of the training, the sport? Is it prospering? Are more people coming to it? Because I'm sure you spent a lot of time with, like Sajid is one of those people. I'm sure you must have met many other rock climbers. So what do you think are the prospects of rock climbing for the locals? Obviously, the foreigners come and climb, the Trango Towers and all these big climbs. But what's your impression?
Well, wherever you go in the Himalayas, I mean, rock climbing does take some money for the gear. Then you need to have the time and so on, and the general holiday costs and so on, but also the gear. So it's tendentially rather the somewhat wealthy people who do it. And so it depends a bit on where you go. I mean, when you're in Islamabad, there are quite a number of people who have the sufficient money. When you go further into remote areas, very often it's like the locals are super interested. But they don't have the money to do it themselves. So you'll see it in the photos later on. It's a very nice thing if you, as a rock climber, invite the locals for some climbing experience. That's really cool. But very often, the people in Baltistan, for example, which I met, they're good for the trekking. They can accompany you in the mountains. They have what I find super important when you hire a trekking guide, for example. They're perfect intercultural interpreters. I think that's the main, or one of the main usages of hiring a guide here. An intercultural interpreter. That's what he does. He avoids intercultural problems, things you shouldn't do but are not aware of, and the like. Rock climbers very often, there are not that many, I think. But I think it's going to develop. I think it's going to develop, increase.
So you've written 5 books in total about your experience in the mountains. What were those 4 books about?
Oh, well, it was a certain development. First of all, I didn't intend to write books, but I wanted valuable mountain experiences to be documented so that others can repeat what has been done. So there's been some guidebooks about climbing in Greece. Then it was the Alps. First of all, a few just PDFs to download from the internet, but then they kept growing. And from some point onwards, I thought we kind of got to print them because it's getting too extensive to download and print all these pages. And so there've been guidebooks about the Alps, about Greece. Then there's been a book about my general travel experiences. I'm sorry, it's in German language, but there you can read a lot about what it feels like, what the aims are, adventures. There's also a Pakistan chapter in it, and then the Himalayan rock climbing guidebook.
What's the hardest climb you've done in Pakistan?
Oh, this is a cool question because it's so difficult to answer actually. What is a hard climb? Is it 5 meters but super overhanging? Is it the loose rock, for example, that you need to be capable of balancing on, distributing your own weight? I would say it was a climb to the Karakoram Mountains, which I did in the end solo, sorry, because the others just couldn't keep up with it. And so I had to do the summit solo, and it was the first ascent. And quite shortly before the summit, there was a really dangerous path because there was a little ice shield, and it was super loose. It was attached to the rock. So I wasn't sure if it would break off or not when I stepped and climbed over it with crampons and ice axes. In the end, I said, I've gone so far, I'm going to continue. So I did climb over it, and it did not break off. But I wasn't sure if it would when I stepped on it. So I would say that was personally, it felt like my hardest climb.
And where was this, and what was the name of this? Was it a rock face or a mountain?
It was a mountain. It was like rock and ice climbing over there. It was in when you go from Skardu through the Shigar Valley, and then you go on, continue towards Spantik. Then there's Bizil, a place with some hot springs, and from there on you can venture into Solu Glacier and Sokar Glacier. And they've got this. I wonder why it's not better known, because they've got very good rock. And they are far easier to reach than all these Baltoro area terrain where you have to walk in for so long. So go by car to Bizil, walk 1 or 2 days, and actually 1 day is enough. And you're right at the base of some awesome big walls in fantastic scenery. It's been that area.
Okay. Anything else you want to share with the audience before we look at your photo show?
Well, if you're really into this, I've got a webpage as well. So we're just talking about it. It's not really a book, but I compiled a leaflet. I think it's some 30 pages or something. It's at my webpage, and you can download, for example, this Solo Glacier, the area which we just talked about, kind of guidebook for free. So it's just my name, Kai-Maluck.de, and then you can get to the documentary about this little part of Pakistan as well. Yeah.
What about the photo show? Yeah? Should we start the photo show, or you want to say...
I just want to say I don't really want to start, because then we've got to lower the screen and then you can't see this awesome painting in the background, which has been done by the students. It's lovely, isn't it? Fantastic. Yeah. I think it's time to start.
Yes.
So, well, I'm not sure how you prefer it. Usually I prefer it if the lights are dimmed, because then you're more focusing on what's being shown. I'm not sure if you do it like this or if you leave the lights on. Yeah, you see the beginning, and what I find very important about what you're going to see is understanding the Himalayas as a whole. So you think of Nanga Parbat area when you think of it. When I show these photos to the US Americans in the beginning, they always think, Himalayas, that's all Everest, only Everest. You know, they always think of ice, 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 no trees. We all know it's a bit different, and I want to characterize the Himalayas as a whole. So on purpose, I left out any ice photos on the introductory poster over here. So understanding the Himalayas, why are they there? This Indo-Australian plate is moving northwards, so pushing the rock upwards over here when it crashes into the Eurasian plate, and that's why we've got these awesome high mountains over here. And when we take a close look at it, the standard definitions, there are many definitions of what and where exactly the Himalayas are. The standard definition is between the Indus River, bordering it to the west and north, and the Brahmaputra River, which is called Yarlung Tsangpo in Tibet, and everything in these kind of brackets. Then we've got the Indian lowlands, the Tibetan plateau. Sometimes there are definitions saying even the mountains up to Myanmar should be part of it. And sometimes it's being said the Karakoram is part of the Himalayas. That's not the dominating definition. So this is the dominating definition, and this is what I followed in my guidebook as well. So this is the map from the guidebook. Let's get in. And sometimes when people from abroad come along, and if you, for example, if you somehow have to do with a trekking business and so on, they're into, I want to get on the trek. I want to reach the summit. And only the summit day is the only happy day I have in my journey. And no, that's absolutely the wrong attitude. I think on a mountaineering journey into the Himalayas, the mountaineering is the spice, but the main dish is the landscape, is the people, is the culture. That's the main dish. And when you eat, let's get back to the physical food. When you have a dish, you don't want to eat spices alone. No, you don't want to have the spices, the pasta or whatever it is without the spices. You don't want to. But you don't want to have spices alone. So the main part is people, is landscape. Like here we were moving in towards Nanga Parbat area, and we just did a short stop at the road. You know all these scenes. It was awesome how these guys stopped and celebrated a little bit with us. So this was a team member of mine. And here you've got the guys. When I was in Assam, it's not only the guys, there were the women. This was, they passed by on the road, a truckload of women. That was lovely. And always, wherever people live, what they always see is normal. normal, kind of boring for them. But when you travel to a different place, things that are different are interesting for you. So for example, in my home country in Germany, this guy would have been stopped, arrested by police. How can you do? It's too dangerous. No. This was the Indian way of transporting things. And for us, as international visitors, this is interesting. But as said, you want to have the spice. In the mountaineering journey, you get the spice. So here comes the spice. In other countries, I would need to explain what this is. I don't think I have to say Fairy Meadows. Here in Nanga Parbat, you know it. Super beautiful, outstandingly fantastic. And I hope they're not going to build up the whole meadow over here, Fairy Meadows, with houses in the future. So that's where you can go. And what can you do over there? You can do the trekking. You can do the mountain climbing. You can just sit there and enjoy the landscape. What we did here was a trek and climb, and you find it in the guidebook as well. Meaning, when you only do trekking, it can be a bit boring for the rock climbers like Sajid. They want to do the rock climbing. If you only go trekking, this might be a bit too boring. So we did a 2-week trek over high mountain passes and the like, from Astor Valley to Rakyot Valley and on into Diamir Valley. That was awesome. And for each and every overnight camp where we slept, we made some rock climbing. So there's a route at every overnight camp. Plus, you can also do some summit climbs of 5,000 meter peaks. And when you're doing this, you can't, even if you're from Islamabad, I guess you cannot do a 2-week trek over there. No, you can't without a cooperation with the locals. So you always need to interact with the locals who live in those valleys. And that can be a lot of fun. Sometimes you see tourist group of whatever nationality. There are kind of, it's like there are the international visitors separated from the local people. And that's, of course, a big waste of opportunity. It's much better if you interact closely. If you get to know people, that's fantastic. Like here we did, that was at Fairy Meadows. When you ever get there and see these balls over there, that's where we made some top rope lines. And then we hung up the ropes and we didn't climb ourselves. We offered to our porters and to our guides, don't you want to do rock climbing? And then we put them on, or they put on the harnesses, and then the tourist police and all these guys, they all tried out the rock climbing while we were belaying them. So this was an awesome amount of fun for us to see their pleasure, and also like not monetary wise, but adventure experience wise. It was like we were supporting them, and that was a cool team building, as you would say in modern politically correct English. Maybe it was a cool group experience where we could see their emotions, could make them happy. So that made a better team of us as a whole. And also summit climbing, like over here we did the probably first ascent of a 5,100 something meter peak, because you have some 5 or something rock climbing pitches up to the top. So there I am just a few meters below the highest point. That was a great adventure as well. And then we summited, and that was also fun because it was an international expedition. It was a Greek and German friendship expedition. So we are 2 nations within Europe. And so he's from Greece, the 2 of us are from Germany. And that was cool to be up on the top. Even though it was a bit dangerous, was again this idea like, that was a team sign we made. It was again like a bit, we'd been preparing this for a very long time. And then during the summit ascent, about an hour before the summit, a thunderstorm was super close. So we could hear the thunder all the time. It didn't start raining at our place, but we could hear the thunder. And so it was actually quite dangerous. So getting down was just being logical, being efficient, no time for pleasure. What is this? I don't know. No time for pleasure. My screen still shows the photo over there. Oh, yes, fine. Maybe some loose cable. So we had to get down to the world of valleys, into the world of comforts. When you go to Skardu, maybe you have been there, maybe you want to go there in the future and you're a rock climber, you can of course enjoy rock climbing over there as well. Like this is Carpaccio Fort, and Skardu is on the right. We've got the Indus River over here. And also this has been an first ascent of my team. We did a 10-pitch, fully bolted route over there. So 10 pitches, no camming devices necessary. You can just climb and have a lovely day outside with the landscape and the culture around. And of course, I mean, this photo show is also for people from other countries. So of course, as you know, Pakistan and Islamic countries, so this is the religion here. And you see it in the dresses sometimes, especially when you go to the, especially, not only, but especially when you go to the peripheral areas, that they were wearing, that all the women are wearing the veil and the like. So this is the way it works here. And when you take a look into the past, of course, I mean, societies change. So in the past, this is also at Skardu, there has been, before Islam arrived over here, there has been a Buddhist past, and that's one of them, the remains of those days. But when you go to beautiful Pakistan, Islamabad, then you get to the sign of the symbol, I think, of Islamabad, the Faisal Mosque, which you can see over here. And yeah, so illustrating Islamabad for people who don't know it. So you've got the Rawalpindi area next to it, then the newly built Islamabad, and behind Islamabad and behind the Faisal Mosque on the right, you've got the outskirts of the Himalayas, the Margala Hills. And for me, this is quite a unique combination which you have over here, which I didn't find anywhere else in the Himalayas. When you're climbing there at these cracks, you see Islamabad immediately below. And when you're at the cracks, very close by, there are these places like, I know La Montana got closed, then Daman Eco, I'm not sure if it's still in doing business, but there was the super luxurious restaurant where these photos have been taken. So you've got the beautiful usage of the high mountains for quite wealthy evening activities, like over here, for the wealthy people of the big town. You can enjoy this even as a tourist, and then during the day do the rock climbing. And this is just like these super fashionable sport climbing cracks in the Mediterranean area or something, like in Spain, in southern France. It just feels exactly the same. You're climbing in the sun, everything's fine, you can do tough rock climbing, and in the evenings then enjoy the noble hotels actually. So that's a cool combination. However, mountains are not only the lower mountains, there are also the higher mountains. Like when you cross the line of control, now we are leaving Pakistan, and this is already in India-controlled Kashmir, then you can do short climbs, but you can also do the longer climbs. Like over here, this was a 7-pitch route, really immediately behind the line of control. It's a bit difficult to get there. And it's not about overhangs or something. It's still rock climbing, but you see a lot of loose rock lying around. So it's a long balancing game, I would rather call it, when you ascend such mountains over there. So this is also a winter view of this place where the last photos have been taken. And still, it's an area of connection, I would rather call it. You can see Nanga Parbat in the area, so that's the summit of Nanga Parbat over there. And you're already in what is controlled politically by India today. The people who come here, they're coming for the rock climbing, some of them, but not the majority. The Indian people love to come here because of the snows. When they're living in the lowlands, they never see snow over there, so they're coming here to experience snow, to touch snow, to feel snow, and so they even come up here by cable car. So, yeah, that's very, very popular. And when you go down by cable car, for example, in the evenings, then you enter the Vale of Kashmir. For you, just behind, from your perspective, behind the line of control, you're getting down into this huge valley. And at the bottom of this huge valley, I always think it's like a pool a little bit. At the bottom, you've got these lakes where you can stay, where you can go by boat, and where you can sleep. So you go with the shikaras, as they are called, with these small boats. You go to the big boats, and the big boats are like this one over here. They're the ones for sleeping. So today often used as hotels. They've not just got one small room or something. They're really large with balconies where you can see the lake. And it's awesome when you come back from an adventurous day in the city, maybe also in nature. When you come back and you enter the shikara and glide over the smooth lake, that is, like a mirror. That's very much distressing and very pleasurable. again, it's a bit like what we said before, and you've got Srinagar here, and some of the wealthier people of the place do love the rock climbing over there. They have the money for the gear, they have the time to do so, but these are the short climbs. And when you go higher up into the mountains, you are entering what is maybe accessible also financially for more local people. Like you are entering these forested areas in the meadows above. For me, it was really weird. This is super close to Astor Valley. It's very, very close to the Nanga Parbat area, but not very much different from the Indus Valley, which is a bit desert-like. Here, you've got the forests. And then you've got the people who live there. As you can see, not everybody is wealthy. It's like in Pakistan, we've got the shepherds, for example, over here. Or we've got people who drive up their cattle to the meadows to stay in the summer. And yeah, and still there's some income. It's still limited through the trekking industry and to the guiding industry. Like here, what's taking place is a little course in rock climbing for trekking guides, and some of them are today already officially guiding as rock climbing guides as well. So they can do the trekking guiding and some rock climbing guiding as well. This is Mount Harmok, by the way, in the background, from which somewhere from its slopes, the name K2 has been created. So the British spotted the Karakoram Mountains in the distance, and they labeled them, and they labeled K2 as it is still today. Yeah. And so for the trekking guides, for example, it's, again, the rock climbing topic over here. It's not just a financial aspect that they get additional income, but they also loved it. They love it, the sport of rock climbing, which is not just walking all the time. Yeah, again, Mount Harmok in the background. Maybe you've heard of it. It's in Jammu and Kashmir area. It's the Great Lakes Trek, which is, I think, the most popular trek over there. When we look back into the past, and now it's getting a bit political actually, when we look back into the past, then you can see the different eras, different cultures, and connected with those different religions. So, like it's over here. The 99.9% religion today, of course, is Islam. As you know, in India, I'm now talking about India-controlled Kashmir. So this is the main mosque in Srinagar. And as you know, India is controlling the situation over there. And as they've got a Hindu nationalist government at the moment, Hinduism is being supported a lot. So when you see the castle over there, overlooking Srinagar, there are soldiers up there. And they also have quite at the highest point, they've got something like an improvised Hindu temple over there. Even though, of course, the majority of the people has got a different religion which they follow. So this is a bit critical. From the Indian perspective, I think it's a bit like it used to be Buddhist over here, Buddhist and Hindu, before the advent of Islam. The people, of course, say, well, we're not talking about 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. We're talking about today. Today, we are Muslims, and we want to, that's our religion. It's a very clear thing. And so there are different perspectives. And well, what I think would be the best thing from the Indian perspective would be if they would say, we wish that this is, or we are all a country together, including the Kashmiris. But the way they're pushing it is a bit different. Like this is the way up to the camp, which I showed before, which is used for the trekking industry. And when I came the second year, I found these signs painted all along the way, like the swastika as a Hindu and Buddhist symbol. And I asked, well, I mean, this is, it's a long story, but this is a Muslim country, a Muslim place. Who placed these signs? And I was told it was the soldiers. The soldiers who are having their camp up there in the mountains, they painted these Hindu and Buddhist symbols as a sign, like who is controlling it. But I think this is exactly the wrong way. They should say, whatever your religion is, you are part of our country. That would make them possibly the part of the team. But they do it exactly the opposite team. So they're pushing, I think, the local population away from their country as it is felt. Observations. So we're getting to an overview of the religions. So in the West, we've got the Islam, which is super largely dominating over here. We've got some areas in Arunachal Pradesh over here where they have some kind of nature religious belief and a little bit of Christianity in between. Oh, sorry. And in the middle, in between, we've got the Hindu and Buddhist areas. So in the lower land, that's that's Hindu dominated. In the upper parts in Tibet, it's of course Buddhism that dominates. And then there's an intermediate layer with Hinduism and Buddhism which dominate in these areas. Still, we've got everywhere, we've got different religions as well, but that's the way it is dominated. And when we moved there, now let's get away from the religions. When we moved there, we crossed from the foothills in the lower areas, we crossed the main chain of the Himalayas. So this is the Sunmark area in India-controlled Kashmir at the border kind of to Ladakh. And you can see the high mountains which capture a lot of precipitation. You've got the glaciers and you've got the forests because of all the rain that's coming down and snow, melting snow. And when you continue even on, further behind the main chain, then you get the places where you hardly have any precipitation. There's only very little rain coming down or snow, so we are now in the area of Ladakh, which is a bit like the Indus Valley, as you maybe know it from around Nanga Parbat, which is desert or semi-desert-like. For me, it's super beautiful when you can see up to this, down to the skin of Earth, actually, with these different colors of rock that gradually sometimes fade into each other. I think this is super beautiful. Yeah. And when you move back from there, from the semi-desert back towards the main chain, then you get the rains again. You get the rains and the snow, like at this place, which is, I think it was Kalpa, the name of the place, which is in Himachal Pradesh now in India. And yeah, so there you've got the high mountains and you've got the forests. And climbing there also from the mountaineering perspective is again beautiful with this backdrop. You can look at the rock, you can look at the backdrop, the icy mountains. Or this place over here. That's quite interesting regarding its development. It's Rakcham, again in Himachal Pradesh, in the Kinnaur region, very, very close to Tibet already. And there's an international guy, an Austrian guy called Bert Sanger. He's one of the world's best boulderers. So he does rock climbing, but without a rope. And I met him a few times over there. And it's his mission, actually, he kind of fell in love with this valley. And it's his mission to get tourists to come there and spend money in such a way that the village benefits from it, and the village is not being exploited, but the people are happy in cooperation with their visitors. So he's very closely interacting with the local people who are farmers predominantly, who wish to get more money. They want to have more income, but they don't want to be treated like the uneducated, simple people or something like this. That's not what they want. So they're included into the process of developing responsible tourism. And of course, like everywhere, people have their cultures. And for me, it's so interesting to see people in different parts of the Himalayas with different cultures. Like just this little entrance door to a house. It's from a friend of mine, Ravi, who's living in Manali. And it's just one of his house entrances. I always think when he first sees that this photo even made it into the guidebook, he will say, "What? That's just my back door. Why is it in the guidebook?" But I find it super beautiful, actually, the way they designed it. Or I was at a village festival with him. So this is like a bit like, again, religions where religions mix a bit. I think it's Hindu predominantly, but then they've got some nature beliefs included in it. And I was at a village festival, which was celebrated in maybe like a blend of religion and culture, you could call it. And we're still in the forested parts. And because we're right at the main chain, so when you're in the forested parts and are moving around, you see beautiful landscape, beautiful nature, Himalayas in their shape as it is over here, and you see the animals. Like, I don't know which animals exactly you're familiar with. When I saw these animals very close to the photo which I've just taken, I first thought it's just squirrels. Like in Germany, we've got lots of squirrels, actually, nothing special. But these squirrels were very special. They ran up super fast the tree trunks, and they were a bit bigger, actually, than normal squirrels. And then they came flying down. I've never seen that before. So there were these gliding or flying squirrels. That was so beautiful. There were a number of them climbing up the trees, came sailing down, looking at us. I think they were a bit nosy, probably. And then super fast they climbed up again. That was fascinating. So it's when we travel, when we visit the Himalayas, nature by itself is also fascinating. Important reason of going there. And humans are sometimes also like those squirrels. We like to climb up. Like here, this is, as you can see, a bit above the tree line already. This is right at the main chain. A multi-pitch climb, alpine multi-pitch climb, which is leading up over there. Sometimes people who are not mountaineers think mountain climbing is always about reaching summits. And the higher the mountain, the better. The higher the rock face, the better. But it's not like that, actually. When we're going down towards the foothills, I mean, you all know how lovely the Margalla Hills are, but also in other parts of the Himalayas, when you go down, this is quite far away from the main chain already, in the foothills. But we still have got impressive landscapes and high faces, like if there were, from the European perspectives, if these were the Alps, we would of course say these are awesome mountains and awesome rock cliffs to climb. Just like this place over here, double pitch route, where this Himanshu is climbing over here, and I loved it actually. Especially from an international perspective, when you're down here and you're in the forest, there are the monkeys kind of like sailing from tree trunk to from treetop to treetop in the canopy layer. That was so beautiful. And like waves of an ocean, one mountain range after the other, one more chain, one more ridge, until it finally disappears in the mist. For me, an awesome place, actually, I loved, even though it's absolutely not one of the highest. Yeah. So once more, the extent for international people, this is sometimes, or intercontinental visitors, this is sometimes quite astonishing. You've got Nanda Devi in the background, which is, I think, a bit lower than 8,000 meters, a very high peak. For the Indians, it's quite important. And then all these foothill crests in front of it, lots of beautiful landscape. And they've got their own cultures. Like wherever you go, they've got their own typical architecture, like the way it is made over here. I've seen in the Nanga Parbat area these layers of wood as well. I think it's, you know this better than I do probably, I think it's good against earthquakes. And they've built even high towers, like this one over here. So it's been, I think it was some 800 years old, super old stuff, and still it's standing, quite earthquake-proof. But currently, so we're coming again to the overlapping topic of religions and culture. Currently, the top part may not be entered because I was told a ghost is living up there. That's what they told me, so it's not possible to enter the top area because you would disturb the ghost, the spirit which is living up here. That's what they told me. Yeah. And we've got different architecture again. You might actually think when you see this photo, Maori, that's what you might think of. So we've got the colonial past of British India, which does, of course, include Pakistan and today's country of India and the like. And I find it very interesting. I've not been to Maori, unfortunately, yet. I will, I think, one day, but I haven't been there yet. But I've been to a number of colonial hill stations within India, and they all have the same features. So I tend to mix them up because I have to think very hard which exactly was it. They all look quite of the same. They've got the same characteristics. So they've got the same typical British architecture. They are actually places where people have been living, where they've been, enjoying their lives, however you judge it. So in this own theater, actually, the viceroys, or this is the perspective from the viceroy of India, who used to sit here in Shimla. So it's been the official summer capital of India. He has been sitting over there when he was still in charge. And yeah, you can see many negative things about colonialism and about the colonial days. Things, whatever culture you think of, it has its human beings with their emotions. And I found it very moving when I went to this old cemetery to see there was a baby who had not even become 1 year old. So you could say devilish colonial girl. But I mean, it was a baby, not even 1 year old. So there it's getting a bit difficult to judge, I think. Well, yeah, and of course, maybe it has to do with death, religion, and so on. You've got the churches over there in an area which traditionally is not Christian. These colonial hill stations always have the same characteristics. People wanted to get away from the lowlands where it was super hot in the summer, and then they were typically along the hill ridges with beautiful views of the higher glaciated peaks, which were absolutely untouchable in those days. They were too far abroad. You didn't have the money, the techniques to go up there and touch the snows. So they must have been the real fuel, the real food for imagination, for fantasy. What could it be up there? What if I could go there? But it's absolutely impossible. It's a bit like going to Mars for us this year, or to Jupiter. I think it must have been a little bit like that. And they've been at places with beautiful nature, like this is Nainital with a very big lake. So even in colonial days, they loved to go by boat and spend their days up here when it was super hot in the lowlands. So what do people do it with it today? I find this quite interesting because it has to do with the past. Like in India, they have to do with colonial days when they come to these hill stations. But they do love to come here. And many of these hill stations within India have quite a bad reputation because of being so overcrowded. So people say, oh, don't go to Shimla. No. All these masses, you get trampled down by the stampede of the tourists. So they come here in high numbers, which is why you see all these hotel rooms lit over here. And yeah, they do adapt. This is what I find quite interesting. Like some people are Christian, and so they use the old churches, but they've got installed these neon lights, which you definitely didn't have in colonial days. So they change it a little bit. They enjoy the views. Yeah, they do definitely. And I found it very interesting, this relationship of a certain rivalry, which I think you can see over here. Like you could see in this is Shimla again, you could see old buildings, old architecture, old town halls, theaters, and so on, and the old monuments. And what I saw in Shimla was, I had the feeling like there was a rivalry and one wanted to compete with the Indians, wanted to compete with the colonial British. Like above the church, there had been a Hindu goddess statue that was positioned even higher and taller. It was like, let's have a competition. And then there were some old statues from colonial days, and they added some new statues. But I thought for me actually was a bit like, well, you can do this, but if I wanted to beat the best if I wanted to be Messi and Ronaldo in football because I want to be better, that's a bit difficult actually to beat them for me. I'm not a football player. So why should I actually, if I want to say I'm not weak, I want to be strong, why should I compete against Messi and Ronaldo in football? Maybe I should compete or say, well, football is cool, but I'm good at rock climbing. Maybe that's a better way of trying to balance the situation between Ronaldo and Messi and me if I ever was to meet them. And I think there is so many ways in which one can balance, compete, or whatever. Take a look at your own culture. Like this is, again, of course, the Indian perspective. They've got these Hindu temples in super beautiful locations, like here at one of the source rivers of the Ganges. And then you've got these temples. It's just a village temple that was opened the day I passed by. Just an ordinary village temple. I found it so beautiful with all these colors and lights and so on. I don't think you have to compete against anything colonial. You've got your own culture, which is so valuable. Or if we go on, again, it's India. I could have done the same about Pakistan, but now it is India. Right at the edge of the Himalayas, where the Ganges River, which is super holy for the Hindus, where it leaves the Himalayas, you've got all this religious culture about the water of the Ganges. You've got the cows lying around and so on, and people go bathing in the river because it's a spiritual ritual, which is very important for them. And honestly, I'm not a Hindu, definitely not. But honestly, when I see this, I want to jump into the river. It looks cool, doesn't it? I mean, it's lots of fun to be swimming in here. They do it. It's their religion. It is a valuable religion. And when I see this boy, actually, it is fun. You do enjoy it, actually. So it's something valuable. Of course, if I went into the Ganges, I would technically not practice any Hindu rituals. It's not my religion, actually. But this way, I mean, this really looks cool, doesn't it? Maybe you haven't got it, but I especially like the way the captains over there, how relaxed they look, while all the rest of their team is kind of panicking, possibly. So this tourist rafting on the Ganges River near Rishikesh, which is very nice. I think a very nice activity for the tourists. And it has its history. Like, I mean, in the past, people didn't go over such rapids as you can see it over here, but there was boating. And I read for the first time, in a book about Tibet, about those goat skin boats. I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but you find it in Pakistan, of course, as well. So about a quarter of a year ago, I tried it for the first time in Gilgit-Baltistan, and Maybe you're not aware of it, maybe you are, I'm not sure. So it works like this, the traditional way of building a raft in the Himalayas and the Karakoram Mountains. You've got a wooden construction down there, which is the base of the raft, and below it you put the skins of the goats, and like the legs and everything is with thread, it is closed, and then you can go, you turn it the other way around, and then you go on the river, and sometimes you have to stop and you re-inflate the goats by blowing air in, and then you put the thread on top again. It works perfectly. Not for the rapids, I guess. I wouldn't like to go through the rapids, but we went down the Shigar Valley, and if conditions had been a bit better, we would have continued into the Indus River. Super entertaining. Absolutely organic. Nobody can doubt that, I think. And a very important part of the old history. And even today, this is practiced by people from the valleys, I was told. And so we did a tourist trip here in the Shigar Valley with these boats. But animals are not always dead, they are also alive. So when you go into the foothills, like when I was here and spending some time around New Year's Eve, I was asking, isn't there a safari? Are there safaris around? And I didn't really find an option to do a safari. But especially in the foothills, there's so much deer actually that's worth seeing. So in India, they've also in Nepal, they've got a few places where you, like this Chitwan National Park in Nepal, for example, a few national parks where you can commercially do safaris. And that's really cool. You can see these dotted deer, I think it's called, or the peacocks you can see. Maybe you consider them a nuisance, but I find monkeys still quite interesting, like this friend over there. You have the hornbills, which are sitting around. And yeah, and the monkeys. I think they are beautiful, even though you shouldn't get bitten. So possibly you've already observed, actually, when you had to do it with international, intercontinental visitors, that they've got a very different attitude very often when it comes to monkeys. They want to get as close as possible to them, whereas you probably say, no, I want to get away from these ugly animals over there. And the tourists, of course, are not aware of the dangers, but you are. They've got the fingers, they've got those teeth up there. You don't want to be that fruit that he's just eating. You don't want your arm to be that fruit. So yes, of course, better stay away. And if you get bitten by these guys, then yes, it does bleed a lot. But the next image actually is not the blood from a monkey, but I was there too early in this area, too early after a monsoon season. It's the leeches, which are horrible and a real nuisance. So you need to know when to go if you want to avoid the leeches. And also, so we're switching to the topic of climate now, also the heat of the summer. Like these water buffaloes, they want to escape the heat, so they went into the river. I think it was early June in Nepal, it was, yes. Near Chitwan National Park. So you need to be aware of the right seasons when to go to the Himalayas. Very often international people think you can only go before or after monsoon. Otherwise you cannot travel to the Himalayas. But it's wrong. So this is an image from the guidebook. And yes, so some parts you can visit in the summer months, other parts you should rather avoid, some areas you can visit all year. Some parts are actually best in the winter time, others are too cold when you go there in the winter time. Yes, all year you can travel the Himalayas, you just need to know the season for the relevant place. That's it. Yeah, so we are switching to Nepal. So this is Pokhara, which is very popular in Nepal. It's a bit like their sea area, like their Karachi area to some degree. So the Nepalese who don't have the sea, they've got this big lake, and even the Kathmandu people from the capital of Nepal, they like to go there for the weekends to fly to Pokhara. You've got this huge lake and Machaputra over here, which looks awesome as reflecting in it. And this is the Annapurna range, one of the 8,000ers, whereas you can see Dhaulagiri a bit further on the west. And when you go in, what can you do? Of course, it's not only the rock climbing, it's other sports as well. So what's super popular is the trekking in these areas. So you've got the Annapurna circuit, which is maybe, I don't know these statistics, but possibly definitely one of the most popular treks on Earth, where you can gradually, just bit by bit, climb a bit higher up every day until you pass finally an over 5,000 meter high mountain pass, and then you can walk down again into some landscape again, which looks a little bit like the Indus Valley. So very diverse landscape without needing to be super intensively trained mountaineer or sportsman or something like that. And it's the landscape plus the culture. like this again, Nepal, you have these little details at the houses. Or the lived culture, like this was the Diwali festival, the light festival, which they celebrated over here. And yeah, even if you've got a different religion, once more, I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not a Hindu, but I enjoyed watching it and experiencing the way they do it. That was fascinating. All those candles in a Buddhist environment in Kathmandu, next to the Bodhnath Stupa, one of the main sites of Kathmandu. Even if, just like me, I said it a million times, if it's not my religion, I don't believe this is anyhow holy or something, but it's very beautiful and it's a piece of art actually that is fascinating and its beauty is quite striking. For us and also for the animals. Like you see those prayer flags over here, which are super popular amongst the Hindus and the Buddhists, and even the animals like them. For climbing around on them. I always think from a mountaineering perspective, it looks like they are using ascenders, jumaring up the ropes, but of course they're not. They're just having fun dangling around on those prayer flags. Oops. So, yes. So we're coming to the topic of rock climbing. What does it to the mind and what does it to the purse? International people very often think, no, this is a real rock climbers topic, like it's got to be climbed tread, no balls at all in the rocks. No, you need the camming devices and so on. But it's a lot of fun actually, and it's fascinating very much to people. And as the wealth typically is not as high as in New York City and Manhattan, in the areas we're talking about, it is actually, I think, moral aspect rather to have the roots, it's my perspective, rather to have the roots bolted so that those who want to repeat them, just need the quick draws, the ropes, the harnesses, and that's it actually. It's getting much more affordable by people. Plus, before we leave the topic of rock climbing again, plus for the people from Germany, it's absolutely normal if you've got an accident, well, yeah, then you go to a hospital, no problem, it's being paid by the insurance. But not in these places. Like when my guards in Delhi got the need of seeing a doctor, they could not have afforded it. In the end, we collected money to make them keep on living, because otherwise the poor guy probably would have died. So if these people over here need medical treatment, they're not as wealthy, they would have problems. And the more bolts we have for the mountaineers, again, this is a topic, the safer it's getting, so the better for the locals who don't get accidents which they can't pay for. Now, when you want to learn rock climbing, also as a Nepalese, for example, it's not just a question of having the money to buy the gear, but it's also a question of getting the experience, the knowledge how to do it. So where can I learn it? It's quite a fascinating topic. And you find in the introductory parts of my guidebook, you find some interviews, and what the Bhutanese guy says, for example, is super interesting. For years, he was looking for somebody to teach him rock climbing. He just couldn't find anybody to teach him, even though he wanted. So in Nepal, it's actually part of the tourist business. So you do get these commercial courses, and they're connected sometimes with the trekking. Again, you trek into the mountains, which means seeing beautiful nature, but also it means getting closer to the people, like over here. And the combination of culture, which we have over here, and the mountains, including the white Himalayas, as you could say. That's the stereotype of the Himalayas, which many, especially international visitors, wish to see. That's it. And right at the back of this valley, Rolwaling Himal, right at the back of this valley, that's one of the main place where the Nepalese do the rock climbing training for the internationally certified mountain guides. So that's exactly where they do it, where they get tested. But getting tested is one way. You need to learn before you get tested. And again, in Nepal, there's been very nice international support from the step of, let's say, 100 years ago. The locals could only work as food suppliers or as porters for the heavy baggage of the international expeditions. Today, it's really changed, and they are the mountain guides. They know best how to climb their mountains. So that's really cool. And there's been, for example, this from the USA, this Alex Lowe Charitable Foundation, and they have built this kind of mountaineering school building over here, where people from Solukhumbu, from the Everest group, ordinary people from farmers' families can go and learn how to work properly in the mountains. So they don't, in the end, don't get these little wages of carrying a bag, for example, as a porter, but they can work as the route setters, to place ropes. They can work as mountain guides. So on the one hand, they get far higher income, which is good. On the other hand, they get the jobs with the highest reputations. And that makes them also psychologically like the bosses in their country. I think this is a very important point, that they don't get the simple jobs, but the well-paid and especially highly accepted, highly valued jobs, that they get those. And at these places like these, they learn how to do it. There are also other sources of income, like, for example, still the supplying jobs. Like, for example, like not everybody can work as a mountain guide. There's not that much demand for that. So you've got the yaks, which transport the gear, yes, again, for the tourists. And sometimes people from the lowlands come to the Everest group to work as, yes, it does still exist, to work as porters, which still means they don't get a super high income, but much higher than what they would have earned as usual farmers. So it is a step forward to them. And yes, and then we've got the shop owners and the shop staff, which we have over here, along the trekking routes which lead into the Everest range. All these people earn much more money than they would have done in agriculture, and it is by far not as tough. So this is again in the Solukhumbu, in the Everest group. This is what a field looks like over there. So it is tough physical work in a very unpleasant climate for a lot of time in the year, with little potatoes or whatever they're harvesting over here. So it is a job which is uncomfortable, and the income is very, very low compared to what you can earn from tourism. Tourism is definitely a step forward to these people. And from the tourist perspective, it's seeing culture, which is again connected with religion in this case, plus beautiful nature. So they're super happy, the guests who visit. Let's get down a little bit to the lower areas. So we're getting down into Darjeeling area, which maybe you're aware of this, when Kolkata was the capital or the main part of the center of the British East India Company. When it got too hot in the summer, they went up to Darjeeling because it was there the climate was a lot better, and it's also famous. It has its beauty, and it's also famous for the tea plantations which we have over there. And when we take once more a look at religions, we've got the Hindu areas, like over here. And we've got the Buddhist places. And this hilltop above Darjeeling I found quite interesting, because it has a religious function both for the Buddhists and the Hindus. So here they share their religious practices in a way, which we have over here. Let's get a little bit higher up into Sikkim. So this is the piece of land in between Nepal and Bhutan, and to the north there's the border with China or with Tibet. And there have been a high number of refugees from Tibet, which have found their way here, away from Tibet, away from China. So many actually that they built a cultural center for the Tibetans with the aim of taking and keeping the cultural possessions which they brought from Tibet. So you've got for example, a huge library and so on, which is a bit like a storage of old Tibetan culture. And when you take a look at people over here, then you can't possibly even say that borders, I would rather say, put it like, traditionally there were the meeting places and the exchange places between different cultures. It's not like there's the border between, let's say, Germany and France, and on the one side of the border we've got all the Germans, thin line, and then we've got all the French people, which is a way in which you could look upon it. Here you can really see how gradually societies change and ethnic groups change. Like this young woman who is climbing here, she does look a little bit Tibetan, and not perfectly or super typically Tibetan anymore. So it's the areas where cultures, where peoples touch, exchange, and mix. When we go further north, we're getting again back to the main chain with the high white Himalayan mountains. So their rock climbing was a real pleasure. This is a south-facing cliff, so it was absolutely snow-free. Well, we could have enjoy a very beautiful view on the White Himalayas in the different. Yes, thank you. The White Himalayas on the north-facing slopes, which were quite shady, and so they had far more glaciers and snow. We enjoyed the views. We enjoyed the mountain tops, even though they were super cold. Yes, they were. And then we went down again in this very beautiful landscape, which was a pleasure for the eyes. And when you move even further north, then you get across the border and you get into Tibet. Like this, already a mountain pass, a bit over 5,000 meters within Tibet, and you can see the glaciers in the background, and in the foreground you can see the prayer flags again, which is of course a part of the Buddhist beliefs which they have over there. And when you move even further north, just behind this Yarlung-Tsangpo, maybe you remember from the initial map, that was the bordering river that borders the Himalayas to the north. Then just past the Yarlung-Tsangpo, you get to Lhasa, the traditional capital of Tibet, with the Potala, the palace or the fortress of the Dalai Lamas. Maybe you've seen photos before, and I'd seen many photos before I came here. And so I knew the building, but when you're standing there, it's really impressive because it is built on a little hill, and it has this very high wall. So it's really impressive how you look up to this huge temple. However, as you may know, the Dalai Lama, the traditional controllers or heads of state from Tibet, they don't live there anymore. They've moved to India, and the control today is by some other people who do control the business in this country very much. And when you walk around Lhasa, then you see, like here's still the Potala over there. It has grown extensively, and there is and there is a number of rules actually which have to be followed from the government and which the Tibetans have to follow. We also did some climbing over here. Maybe we can skip that part. It's a bit extensive. We've done some climbing over here, some bolted climbing, which wasn't very difficult. And from up there, we could look down on Lhasa, the capital as it is. And this is very largely growing. All these buildings, of course, are now buildings that have been there 100 years ago. And it's primarily people, sometimes it's people from the periphery, which are brought here and which are sometimes not actually allowed to live as nomads anymore. So they're in Lhasa. And then to a very high degree, it's people from other parts of China which are moving here. And we had very many very serious conversations with the local people who see that soon they will not have the majority in Tibet anymore, who controls our country, and many very much worrying descriptions of who has control and are we the masters of our own land anymore? And I think every country should be should try to avoid to get too much influence from somebody else. So this is again the Potala, but in the way it was, I think roughly maybe some 80 years ago, you see there are hardly any buildings. Like it's today, it's all built up here with high-rise buildings. There was a settled area, then we have got the Potala over here. So the extent to which this town has grown is incredible. Religion is being practiced, and I very often had the impression that it was still a sign of maybe will not to surrender to the external power. That's the way I very often thought about it, and the impression I got. So the people practice their religion within their temples and outside of their temples, and there's the Chinese flag governing it all. When you move a little bit south, you get into Bhutan, and there's no Chinese flag controlling everything. And what you do, there were surveillance cameras in our car, even if they were recording everything we said as tourists. Well, so this is Bhutan, and for them, religion has a super highly important function. When you go through the towns in Bhutan, there are Buddhist symbols everywhere, and the religion plus the dragons. They've got a very big dragon kind of cult. I would always say they've got beautiful places, beautiful temples. And right here, we were also visiting was a monastery, and we could visit some prayer sessions. So that's what it sounds like. It's about 20 minutes, but I don't think you want to listen to this for 20 minutes. And yeah, a religion which overlaps with nature. So also from the rock climber's perspective, sometimes it's a very sensitive topic, actually, if you wish to practice rock climbing and on the rocks, which rocks are possible to use for rock climbing, because the religion overlaps with nature. Let's put it like that. Let's go even deeper down, so we're getting to the very end of the Himalayas, these jungle areas. For you, it might be quite normal to be in the jungle. For me, it's quite normal to have these conifers around everywhere. So I'm used to different nature. And for me, this was one of the, actually, if you would ask me which is the most beautiful part of the Himalayas, I would say this one, actually. It's in the very lowlands, you've got this super thick jungle terrain. And just when the monsoon season, when the rainy season is over, everything is in a very, very brightish green, the landscape. The sky is blue, you've got some comfortable, maybe 27 degrees Celsius. And the forests are super green. And I wanted to go rock climbing, and it was a bit difficult at first because actually, where are the rocks? There were some places where the monsoon had swept away the landscape, and there was barren rock. But it was clear after the next monsoon season, these cliffs will have been partly eroded again. So what we ended up was jungle climbing in the end. So we just went up these steep forested jungle hills and put the slings along the tree trunks, pulled ourselves up on the trunks and on the lianas, pulled ourselves up. And that was a kind of rock climbing as well, actually. Very different and a very beautiful nature. Plus, we did some waterfall rappelling. Like this was a very beautiful double pitch rappel along a waterfall. And from the mountaineer's perspective, automatically you don't want to drift into the water. You want to get outside. But then there's this overhanging passage and you've got no choice. You just dangle into the water. But that's the fun part of it, of course. And as it's quite warm, it's very, very much entertaining. It's not difficult, only technically you need to know how to rappel. But yeah, very good fun. And the water continues into the river, and the next river is the Brahmaputra River, actually, which, as said, is in the tradition, or the classic definition, is the eastern edge of the Himalayas. And so we did some paddleboarding. I went here many times. I loved it so much. We did some rafting. We did some paddleboarding. And as you can see, it was even a stand-up paddleboard because the river is very fast, but quite calm, actually, in this area. And it's a bit weird about these definitions from a global perspective. So as said, this is the eastern border in the classic definition of the Himalayas. But the mountains to the west and to the east of the river look exactly the same. So I was talking to the local and said, yes, that's the Himalayas over there, and there's the river there it ends. And then they went like, well, this is the Himalayas. Those are not the Himalayas anymore. What are those mountains called? I was like, I don't know, actually. But by definition, they are not Himalayas anymore. It just looked exactly the same. So science and its logic sometimes is a bit abstract, actually. If you
Where is this now?
It's called Arunachal Pradesh, Pasighat. It's in India. So exactly the place where the Brahmaputra River leaves the Himalayas. It flows out into the Indian plains to the south. And when you follow the river, it's fantastic. I've done this, I think, 3 times, actually. You start within the gorges of the Himalayas and by boat go out, like on this pedal boat over here. You go out, and then you leave the then you leave the Himalayas and get into these wide open plains. People act differently. Like this, there's a fisherman he's building with rocks, he's building a little dam in a V shape so that the fish go into his net over there. And the valley opens very, very wide. It's not a valley actually more. It's just the Indian plains of the lowlands. And when you've got this sunset area atmosphere, when you enjoy the wideness of the landscape, that feels very, very free and very calm. You can do it as a day trip. You can do it as a multi-day cruise, which I also did with my mother and my brother's family for a few days. So we even had, this is quite expensive, but we had our own boat, which was going on the river. That was awesome. You could see the farmers along the banks of the river. You could enjoy the sunsets, and very lovely time. And that's the way, of course, that leads into the main Indian subcontinent, but that would be a different topic, not the topic of the Himalayas. So, with the idea actually of this photo show to characterize the Himalayas as a whole and their diversity as a whole, that was my main intention with this. I'd like to give you one more time a little overview where all these different places have been. I didn't want to put in a photo after every, a map screenshot after every photo. That would have been a bit boring. But let's take a look again at the places we've just been visiting. So it all starts at the edge of the Himalayas in the very west at the Nanga Parbat. And from there on, we went to a beautiful Skardu. I actually like all these places so much. I have awesome friends in Skardu. Then Islamabad with the foothills. Also fantastic, Sajid climbing, then into the Vale of Kashmir and to the then Buddhist areas of Ladakh, that's the number 7. Down, back again to the main chain, where you saw the traditional cultures, and and then down to the British colonial hill stations. They didn't go to the main chain, they went to the just over there. Then Pokhara in Nepal and the Annapurna circuit. You remember this long trekking route, which is so popular around Mount Annapurna. Down to the lowlands again for some safaris and for Kathmandu with its, all its vivid street life. And to the Rolwaling Himal, where the Nepalese learn the mountain climbing, get tested, and the Everest range, where they can learn it as well. Down to Darjeeling and up into Sikkim. And then we continue on to Tibet, to Lhasa, just outside of the Himalayas, and down to Bhutan, that's the next place, and then down to Brahmaputra River. If you're interested in it, just for €0, you can go on Instagram or Facebook. I've got a webpage called Himalayan Rocks. We've got here today, this book we don't have here today because it's in German language. We've got here Himalayan Rocks. And Sajid is about to sell it, I think, to everybody who is interested. 15,000 rupees. Actually, honestly, it might be more in the future because these books I brought here last night by plane in my own suitcase, but in the future we would have to ship them, and then there would be some cargo costs as well. So you probably never get them as cheap as possible as you can get today from Sajid. All right, that's it with the show. Possibly. Possibly there are some questions from some of you, or some remarks. Yes, please. It's for the art.
Hello? Oh, perfect. I have one. Thank you, Karina. I'm probably the only other foreigner here. This is fantastic. I just wanted to ask, did you put this presentation together for the narrative and the way the book is written? Because, or did you really do that whole trip? Like, did it take 2 years and you crossed all these borders, like as you described it? Because you spoke of the LOC, you were on this side, then you were on the other side. Did you just walk across?
Oh, sorry, I have to laugh. I didn't walk along across the line of control, then I wouldn't be here alive anymore. Sorry, it's because it's heavily guarded. But I went rather close to the line of control from both sides. So I've been visiting Pakistan and went into Gilgit-Baltistan and so on. And I've been living in India for 3 years, and from there traveled from the east, from the Indian controlled part, quite close to the line of control. So I've visited some 98% of these places. Some very few places I did not visit myself because I didn't have enough time. But almost all these places I've visited, but not as one single journey, not like this. And the book focuses on the rock climbing. What I wanted to do here is characterize the Himalayas as a whole. That was so that a little bit. It's overlapping, but they've got some different core intentions. The book and the photo show.
Yeah, so it's not possible to just, maybe 200 years ago you could have done it.
No, Karina, it's not
Exactly.
possible. I mean, it's like a line of control. There are
No, but
fences.
also he crossed over to Bhutan. It just
that's different.
listening to it, it was like, oh, this is great. You can just keep going and go from one country to the other.
You can fly some parts where you can't walk across the army lines, and then you fly over that.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Hi, so thank you for that great presentation. It's always good to actually have more guidebooks on Islamabad also. That's a very niche topic that you've contributed to, and it's much appreciated. I just want to touch on a topic that's essentially staring mountaineers and climbers in the face is basically climate change essentially. And if you looking in the news also, the floods are becoming more severe, more frequent. So even last year, even the lower foothills are being affected essentially. So we just last year had have a local crag here that the top of it just collapsed essentially and came all the way to the valley floor. And so, for a few months that became very inaccessible essentially. And, so what I'm basically trying to say is what guidebooks try to fix all these routes in some time, in a time frame, right? But with this rapidly changing hydrology, will these routes that way be there in 10 years? Will they be safe to climb, that way? Because we see all of this thing rapidly, changing just in front of our eyes, essentially. So even though guidebooks are great, how is mountaineering and climbers adapting to these changes? Like you put up a diagram that said when to climb, sort of a thing. So I feel that graph as a very not a static thing, and this might be very in 6, 7 years, 10 years down the line be a very different graph, and you might plot this very differently. So how is climbers dealing with these things, and what is the future of guidebooks then in such a rapidly changing world?
You're right. So yes, thank you for this cool contribution. Yeah, actually, some 10 or 15 years ago, I started changing my personal focus on rock climbing. And before, I always preferred ice climbing. I preferred the glaciers. I preferred waterfall ice climbing, but especially high mountains and glaciers. But I also noticed, just because of your idea, the same idea actually, this is changing so rapidly. How these ice faces are retreating and so on. You could every 3 years or 5 years, you could set up a new glacier climbing book. That doesn't work anymore. That was one of the main reasons why I said, well, if you really want to create something that lasts for a long time of others to enjoy it, you have to switch to the rock climbing. That's been the main reason why I switched towards rock climbing. And when you go to rock climbing, you have, if you want to develop something that helps others for the future, you should think of a few ingredients, like for example, that it doesn't overgrow super quickly, or also the erodibility. As I said, for example, in the last area in just over there at the Brahmaputra River, there I did not do the real rock climbing because I completely saw this will erode very quickly. But when you take a look, erosion can come from extensively high rains that come down, but then still the rock needs to have the cracks, maybe mud filled and so on, so that it breaks down. If it's just a solid granite outcrop, it will stand the rain, actually. Or if it's just keeping stable by ice in the core of it that keeps the rocks together. But if you don't have these ingredients, then the rocks actually do last really long. So when I think of these cracks in the guidebook, I would spontaneously say all of them are very stable against erosion. However, I can't guarantee for each and every one. But I would bet with you that in, let's say, 50 years, 98% of them are just the same as they are today. But yes, it's super important how the glaciers are retreating, erosion is increasing. However, it doesn't mean that every rock breaks down. Yeah. And it's quite shocking to see how quickly, especially the glacier retreat, you can so quickly see it, how intensively that's taking place. Yeah.
The mountains that essentially was on top of it just kind of fell down. And since we have limestone in the Margalas, it's full of cracks, and you can hear water inside it. There, you probably went to Legacy. 90% of the year there's a drip of water coming down that. And now you're seeing even the Margalas are flooding. That's some things that we've never even seen before, or at least in my lifetime. These type of floods. So I'm definitely sure this is going to have an effect on our crags, So I'm just, worried about the future of climbing in Islamabad also.
So if we were restricted to the Mangala Hills, I definitely have to say they are safe. They are safe. They are safe. They are safe. You've got limestone areas in Thailand or in Laos, for example, where it rains way more than it does here, and it is stable, actually. It depends on the exact structure of the rock. And from all the places I've seen here, I believe they're consistently solidly connected to the inside of the mountain. even though maybe a little part might, I mean, it's erosion. As soon as we go out into nature, it's nature, and nature lives and changes itself. So wherever you go, these outdoor rock climbing sites do change a little bit, yes. Yeah, but I think it's really stable. You will be able to climb these routes in 30 years, I would kind of guarantee.
I won't hog the mic and give it to someone else after. Just this is on the grading systems. I'm sure, like, because we have a history of it, we follow the French grading systems. Did you see any differences as you were going down the Himalayas, and how did you end up standardizing your routes, or do you use a single grading system in your book, or are there multiple ones?
Oh, well, traditionally I was using in my guidebooks before, I was using this UIAA grading system. But when I started investigating here, I saw exactly as you said, not only in Pakistan, but also in Nepal and so on, the French system is the dominating one, especially when it comes to the sport climbs. And I didn't want to have a different grading system for every area. So I said, this is the grading system. So I used it throughout. And in some areas, I had to translate from especially the US-American system into the French system. Sometimes it was from the UIAA grading system. So I gave the grades all throughout the guidebook in the French grading system, yes. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, did you take all these pictures by yourself?
Almost all of them, actually. As said, there were a few areas which were a bit remote, and I didn't have enough holidays to go to all of them. So for, I think, 2 areas I can think of spontaneously right now. 2 areas I gave the camera to some friends and asked them for me to take the photos. But all the other photos I took myself, yes.
And I also want to ask, what should you learn if you want to do rock climbing?
Are you living in Islamabad, or where are you living?
Islamabad.
Islamabad. Honestly, what I would, if you would ask me as a friend, if we were just the 2 of us, I would say go to Sajid Aslam. He's sitting over there. Because he knows very well how to do the rock climbing. He does a weekly training session, and possibly there's also something for the younger ages.
I do it with Sajid uncle.
Okay, cool. Then you're in best hands, actually. Do what he teaches you, enjoy the time with him, and when you wish to proceed and see maybe other parts of Pakistan where you can climb as well, maybe you can ask him what he thinks of a holiday tour. You can ask him this, yeah?
Any other questions, or else, we'd wrap up the session now. Sure.
Yeah, and if, sorry, that's the last question, yeah.
Well, I'm really much appreciated your contribution, that the way you piled up these pictures and the way you presented it is really appreciating, and I love these pictures you took by yourself.
Shukriya.
There are very much question I wanted to ask is that you have been to line of controls, and I've listened when you were talking to the one Matt that you have been to Baltoro.
Not Baltoro, no.
Right.
So this area, general, yes, in Gilgit-Baltistan, yes, the general to this area, yes.
The
right.
generals, yeah. Mm-hmm. So have you been interacted with any military persons in Pakistan Army or any other country?
You know, the first time I came here, maybe you are aware of this, in 2012, there was this attack on the base camp at Nanga Parbat. And we were there immediately after that. We were some 2 or 3 weeks later, we came on holidays into Pakistan. One of my team members, her family was going so crazy, no, you will not survive it. So she stayed in Germany. We couldn't convince the parents. But the rest of us, we all came. And during that holiday, there were a lot of army personnel was accompanying us, even on the Karakoram highway. They were with us in our car. We had nice conversations with them, so they stayed with us. And on one of the, sometimes we had the tourist police coming with us. But apart from that, yeah, I mean, of course, there are always army checkposts, and then you hand over the passport, say hello. Sometimes after some time, they open into a more personal conversation. At first, they're always very strict and want to control the situation. That's the way I've been in contact with them, yeah.
Another thing is that in comparison to in other countries, do you suggest that the Pakistani locals are better in direction, or is there any good points of any other country you want to explain?
You know, it's a bit like if we switch the topic a little bit and think of girls or women, yes, then there can be super beautiful, dark-haired women. There can be super beautiful, bright-haired women. There can be super, let's say, super emotional and fascinating. They can be calm and charming that way. So there are very different kinds of beauty. There's not only one kind of beauty. And I can super honestly say you, I like Pakistan very much. I like Pakistani people very much. That does not mean that I like no people from other countries. So I've seen different kinds of beauty in societies in other countries as well. But regarding Pakistan, I can say you, as said before, I've been here many times and it's not the last time that I'm here this time because I like it very much.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
Shukriya.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned one thing about this bolted climbing versus tread climbing. Now, for example, mostly people will go for safe form of climbing, which is bolted or bouldering maybe. But what about the adventurous people who want to dabble in tread climbing and want to climb big stuff like big walls? What advice will you give them? How can they start and how can they learn, at least in Pakistan?
Yes. We've been talking a little bit about the very beginnings of rock climbing training, which maybe isn't the super safe way, like with bouldering, top rope climbing, bolted lead climbing, and so on. Yeah, and if you want to proceed, well, you need the money for the camming devices, and if you've got this or if you can hire it somehow, yeah, ask those who have already used it how to do it. I know that today very often YouTube videos are used for that as well, to learn how to place, but it's better actually if you go with, as always, it's better if you go with someone who knows. I'm not sure if there are any courses offered here in tread climbing. I'm not sure of that. And then extend the grading, like start with a low wall, then do a multi-pitch, then maybe try out for the first time with a portaledge and so on. And so extend, this is what I've been doing for decades actually, extend the difficulties you are facing bit by bit by bit by bit. This is what I would suggest. And regarding the bolting, have everything. If somebody says, I want to bolt a route, you know, why I emphasize it so much is if you go to Canada and you start the bolting, you've got a big trouble over there. But I think this is not the right attitude to do over here. If we're not talking about Pakistan being full of bolts everywhere. So if somebody wants to do bolting, yeah, go ahead and do it. And if you want to bolt a multi-pitch route, go ahead and do it. There still is a lot of terrain which is not bolted, where not the money is available for the bolting and so on. Yeah, that's fine if you, as said, if you extend what you do bit by bit, so also to keep it unboring. By adding a little bit more bit by bit, you keep it interesting for yourself. So start low and reach higher bit by bit. That would be my suggestion.
Tutorials, one can learn tread climbing.
Is this being recorded? Otherwise, I could start telling about what I observed in India. There many of the young climbers told me, well, they do a lot of watching video YouTube tutorials so that they know how rock climbing is done today. And then they practice it. However, if you don't have an expert looking at what you do, there's always the risk of thinking it must be like this, not being aware of the mistake you're doing, and you just notice it when you fall down. So it's use the videos, and maybe have an expert go with you. That would be the perfect way, I would say. Yeah, an experience.
Thank you for the wonderful session. Kai has a flight to catch tonight. So, and thank you all for your presence. You've made it so enjoyable. And please have a look at the book and do get one for yourself, please. Thank you.
It does include chapters about general topics like current literature of the Himalayas and geology and so on as well, and many photos as well, even for the non-rock climbers. Okay.